Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job. Hello and welcome to Homeschool Together. Thank you for joining us. If you have a chance, head down below and leave us a review. It's almost Christmas and the holidays, and leave us a little gift, and the gift of reviews. That would be really wonderful. Now, we've been talking a lot about travel, Ariel.
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot about travel the last couple of weeks.
I love travel.
And we, helping you guys think about maybe in this coming new year to think about moving beyond and going out into the world. But sometimes going out into the world doesn't have to be very far. You don't have to hop on an airplane. You don't have to get the minivan all packed up and getting ready to drive across the country. There's so much stuff in your own backyard that maybe you haven't even discovered. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with this new Trekking the Globe that we're...
Trademark, homeschool again.
Trekking the World. What are we calling it? I don't know.
Trekking the Globe. We got to get that straight before we put the trademark.
No, I think... Trekking the Globe, because Trekking the World is the game.
Yeah.
I'm confused. I'm confusing myself.
That's all right.
I'm in the middle of Tech Week, y'all, for my theater show. I'm running on empty. So, through this process of going back and studying these countries again, and we put a real emphasis this time on biomes, which we've been really enjoying. Mm-hmm. But the second is on having local experiences that we can kind of connect, whether that's going out to eat at a restaurant or going to a cultural festival or, doing something else.
It's been the highlight of our journey. Like every week we're looking forward to these outings and these experiences. This has been a really kind of like, because we remember what we did before, and what we did before was heavy books, a lot of reading, this has been a lot of outings and eatings.
Right. Yeah. Eatings are always good. And our 5-year-old definitely isn't as, into sitting down and listening to a book as she is kind of moving and experiencing. And what we've realized through this process is that we didn't have to go as far as I thought. When I originally thought about this, I was like, okay, we're going to, we're pretty close to Canada up here in the Seattle area. Okay, maybe we'll go to Canada and we study that. I know of a couple of events that are probably going on. I knew about the Highland Games, for example. I knew about a couple of things. But man, I have been so surprised by what is in our own area for all these different cultures. Now, we do live in a pretty multicultural city, so obviously this whole episode is your mileage may vary because your area may have something we don't have, and we may have something you don't have, right? It's always depending on where you live and what you have access to. But we wanted to highlight some places to go and seek out to find new things to go and enhance your homeschool.
Well, and this is something you always talk about. You're like, I wish there were, a website that had the listing of all things, right? I don't have to just go to the city website. I don't have to just go do this thing. A lot of times you want to know what these events are, and it's just, there's not an easy way to find out. And so today we're going to be talking a lot about that. So the first thing that we've talked ad nauseum about this, and for all homeschoolers, the first place you want to go to find out what's happening is in with other homeschoolers. So this would be like your co-op and those type of things.
Right,
And meetups.
A meetup, some sort of gathering where you can leverage all of you together to say,
Hey,
go to...
what's going on? What's happening?
Right. Our Girl Scout troop, for example, and the other troops all got together and we went and talked to the local county search and rescue, and we got to tour their facility and sit in their helicopter, and it was super cool. And we had this great experience, and we were able to leverage it because we were part of a group. We weren't just individuals. So, I mean, that's the first thing. And those type of organizations will have made connections with different businesses or nonprofits or things in the area, and then you can leverage those. So that's like your lowest hanging fruit. The next thing would be your organizational groups like your, community youth organizations, whether that's 4-H or whether that's Scouts or Boys and Girls Club or, and 4-H, one of the things I like about that is I really always thought it was just animals. I don't know, in my mind.
So much more, yeah.
I felt like this is animals. And it is. There's a lot of animals, but there's also STEM and there's art and there's all kinds
Crafts
of different stuff.
And fiber work and all that type of stuff.
There's way more going on, and depending on your area and what people in your area are interested in, there's lots of opportunities. So, any kind of youth organization, whether you're like Campfire Kids or Boys and Girls Club or your YMCA, those type of facilities have great access to not only what they have going on at their facility, but they bring people in and there's other opportunities. So, those are, I think, kind of the most basic, easy ones to, go after.
Kind of the next thing you may want to do on the step ladder of finding things going on would be kind of non-for-profits and volunteer opportunities. These would be great things like food banks or any type of like community farm or garden or something like that, where people are being asked to give themselves to help support whatever
Absolutely.
This opportunity is. And I think there are so many opportunities to learn and share. And what's really interesting about non-for-profits and volunteer organizations is that they're built on networking with other people. And so once you get into one group, if you say, hey, what other opportunities are, they can tell you about, oh, there's this opportunity, or there's this non-for-profit, or, oh, you live closer to this town, you should talk to, Barbara on this type of thing, or whatever it is. There are so many networking opportunities once you get into something that requires people to volunteer their time. I think there's a lot of opportunity to find something that works best for you or your family.
And additionally, when you volunteer with those organizations, often there's a component that includes an education. So we volunteered with Food Bank Farm that's in this local Seattle area. Usually you'll harvest squash or whatever, and then the farmer will take you on a tour and explain the other things that are going on. And he'll talk to the kids and he'll answer their questions about how things grow or what animals they have. There's an animal rescue not far from here, and they have several volunteer days, but they also have like Scouts days and stuff. And you work on the farm for a few hours, and then they give you a complete tour, educational tour of the whole space and how they care for the animals and all about that. So a lot of times, in conjunction with the networking, you've got these volunteer organizations that also know that there's an educational component and are happy to provide that in exchange for your volunteer hours. So I think that's great.
And a lot of these groups really, really, really love to have groups of homeschoolers. So if you're part of like a little club of homeschoolers, or you have a small co-op, a lot of these type of volunteer opportunities love to see a big group of kids come out and do this. And maybe even something on the regular where maybe your group goes once a month or every other month to, the food bank and helps pack food or whatever that might be. They love to see the recurring element, and that creates that sense of community, and those kids keep coming back to it. It's almost like a part of your education is the giving back of yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of the problems that you can get into with volunteering, especially in homeschool groups, we have lots of varied ages. There's not a ton of locations that allow kids to volunteer. You're mostly going to find these being kind of your outdoor locations. You could sometimes be packing food for the food bank or wrapping gifts at Christmas, or there's lots of things that they will allow some groups of kids to do, but there's usually like a minimum age. You couldn't, have a baby in tow or something like that. So that one can be challenging. One of the things I would recommend, if you haven't joined your local homeschooling Facebook group, and I know some of you are like super anti-Facebook, and I totally get it. But you might want to just join that group. If you have, like, we have one for our local county and we have one for our whole state. Those are wonderful places to ask the question, where have you volunteered? I have kids ages, blah, blah, blah. Where have you volunteered as a family? Where have you volunteered as a larger group? And what kind of educational opportunities came out of that? Because you can just, retread ground that somebody else has already done. It's just going to save you so much legwork. So even if you're like, I hate Facebook, I don't want to be on there, you might join just for that and just turn on notifications for those groups, and you don't have to be on there otherwise. But you will find that is where the majority of homeschoolers are communicating. And I think the Facebook groups goes for any of these opportunities, right? Whether you're looking for a science opportunity or you're looking for a cultural center, or you're looking for whatever, even just searching that group, even if you don't post anything, should probably be like your first stop, because it's going to be the least amount of effort.
Even just lurking is a great thing. The next one is thinking a little bit beyond the books and going to your library.
Oh,
a lot of times at your local library, there are, hub events. You may even have a maker space. Mm-hmm. A lot of times they have science, hour or whatnot. There are a lot of opportunities at your local library. Then they have a nice board of those events, and it's a great thing to put down on, whatever your calendar is and slot it into, an open afternoon. There's so many opportunities. They're constantly giving talks at libraries, especially in our area, where you can go in and listen, or there may be a certain topic that you're interested in, or
maybe
there may
crafts, or
there may be some community member. If you have kind of like a large, Native peoples type of thing in your area, you may have, cultural events at the library that they're talking about. So there's just a ton of opportunities at your library that I think are forgotten about when, we're just going in there and checking out our 90 books.
Right. We kind of I think of the library as like books and story time for small children.
Yeah.
And it really is so much more than that. We have a great episode from the podcast that Matt will link in the show notes about, all of the ways to use your public library. And this is another, your mileage may vary, because some library systems have tons of events and some have less. You can always request an event too. You can say, hey, we would really love it if the library would support XYZ. I know our local libraries, they go out and they actually solicit to find people to give those talks or do those workshops or whatever. So if there's something you want to see.
I'm giving one in January.
Right. Yeah. And they actually called you and asked if you'd give one on writing. And so, definitely let them know what you're interested in. And don't forget that just because your county library system doesn't have it, like we're, not in the King County library system that's in Seattle, but we could go to a King County library if we wanted to and sit in on a talk or, join an event or something. You can't use everything if you're not a member of that. But you definitely don't need to be limited to just your local area when it comes to your library.
The next thing that we like to think about is, in most communities and towns, they have a farmer's market. There is some type of agricultural outreach center. I know here in Washington, most states have land-grant universities that have extension offices in pretty much every single county. And there's a ton of activities going on at these extension offices. Very often they have gardens and expos and plant sales and a ton of activities and fun things for kids to do. Not just going to the farmer's market or going to this agricultural center, but going to the extension offices. There is an enormous amount of, plants and animal learning and activities, and they love to see kids going there. And there's a ton of events. So definitely look into your extension office. This was something I did for a little while. I was a master gardener for about 2 years. And there's a huge outreach that you just don't see that's out there. Sometimes you see the master gardeners at events like plant sales or outside a grocery store or whatnot, answering questions about your plants and whatnot. But there is this huge element of the extension office that gives talks. Sometimes they give movies and they do documentaries and whatnot. So definitely take a look at that as an opportunity for you, especially if you are kind of a farming family or a gardening family. That could be a great outreach for you and your learners.
And don't forget about government offices, town buildings. So like we have a community center here, and your parents have a community center near their house. There's all kinds of programs going on at that community center.
Even at those senior centers, there's a lot.
The senior center, yeah, and they're not just for seniors. There can be all kinds of different things that you can help with. And your government offices, your police and fire stations and city hall, and of course your state government. There's access to tours. There's special educational days. There's different exhibits that are going on. One of the things when we were down visiting Albuquerque so we could go to the balloon fiesta, and we went and toured the New Mexico State Capitol in Santa Fe when we were there.
It was awesome.
It was super cool. And they were like, oh yeah, this month we're having a whole art exhibit on this. And it was like, oh, we had no idea. Like, oh, the state capitol has this roving different exhibits
literally the halls, like there was like 3 or 4 stories, beautiful kind of round rotunda type of in the middle, and then along the hallways they had all this beautiful artwork just displayed everywhere.
Yeah, it was like a museum, and it was the state capitol.
And it was free.
Yeah, and then they had a different exhibition that was going on that was special for just that month, which means that it's going to change.
And do you remember they even had that exhibition in the governor's office, like in her office.
Yeah, we actually got to go into the governor's office. It was really cool.
It was wild, yeah.
It was very neat, and they were so nice, and so your local fire station, they're going to have like touch a truck days and other days for kids to, they love seeing kids, and especially if you come bearing some treats, that always smooths things over. If you, want to meet with your local police, or like we did the search and rescue team, and it was actually, it's a volunteer search and rescue that's run by the sheriff's office, but then it's all volunteers. A couple of gals brought their dogs and showed us how they do the training, and then we got to see the helicopters and all the gear, and we got to learn about first aid, and it was they were so happy to accommodate. Well, so you just need to ask. You got to put yourself out there a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. And especially if you have, a firefighter or a paramedic or even a police officer who lives, down the street or whatnot, man, they love coming to groups of kids and showing things off. I can't tell you, one of my friends, he was a police officer, and then he was a firefighter, and he kept bringing he brought his truck one time to the school to show a bunch of the kids. He then brought his motor when he was a motorcycle cop, and then when he was a firefighter, he came in with all his gear and stuff. Like they will bend over backwards to help homeschooling groups and young kids and show whatever. So definitely don't sleep on those public services. The paramedics, the firefighters, they love seeing a bunch of kids come through. It's such a relaxing thing for them. They do enjoy it.
Yeah, and it's a great way for us to talk about helpers in our community. And of course, with your government buildings, it's a great way to talk about civics and social studies in your area, the makeup of your county. There's a lot to go into there. Obviously, better for a little bit older kids to do the government stuff, and but definitely our 5-year-old loves it. Every time the fire department comes out with like the touch a truck, she is all about it. And that's the other thing too. You've got city services, so you have your utility companies as well. Like we have our PUD. They occasionally will have tours of their facilities and stuff, and you can learn about the power grid and all of it. It's just, and if you don't see it, just call and ask. They may say, oh yeah, we don't have anything right now, but every April we have whatever, and then you can put that on your calendar. I talked on one of the episodes, maybe it was last week, about putting things on your your Google Calendar, and I have a calendar I can hide that's like potential events where I put local theater and different things, and I keep all kinds of stuff there. And one of the things that I've found is that lots of local nonprofits and different organizations that have events come up, they won't keep their calendar is not like updated months and months in advance. They just don't do that. It's like a month in advance. So if you don't see something on there, it doesn't mean that they don't do anything. It just may mean it's not the right time of year. And you can always give them a phone call or shoot them a quick email and just say, do you have any educational events coming up? Or is there a time of year you normally do them? Then you put that into your calendar to shove that away for later.
Well, and don't sleep on, going with the government offices thing, don't sleep on the fact that your local city may have a coordinator who's coordinating a lot of city-run events. Oh, yeah. We have this huge thing here in our town on the lake, and it's a whole summer of activities. I mean, sometimes there's the speedboat. They had little RC racing boats one day.
There was a
wakeboarding competition. There was music in the park, Shakespeare in the park. Don't sleep on your local town and forget about those. And even more so, the local parades. Holy cow, the 4th of July parades, the community parades. Those are like, you think, oh, it's just a bunch of floats. I mean, how's that interesting? Man, kids love that stuff. Right. And a lot of times people in the parade show up and show out. Like we had like pirates in one of ours this year.
So we had, and the educational aspect of this, right? We had like a huge crane truck one time. We got into this entire discussion with the girls about how they build tall buildings and how the crane actually ends up building itself as it goes up. And they were fascinated. The last time we were at a parade, our local representative was actually walking and shaking hands and things. And we got to explain, okay, what does it mean to be a state representative versus a U.S. Representative? And so there's plenty of things to learn in your local community. And, I talked about schools a little bit, I think because we think we are not part of the schools, that things for the schools don't apply to us.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot going on. We often go to sports games at our high school,
all the
but
time.
there's also, there's orchestra and there's choir performances and there is theater. Every local high school here has a theater program. They're going to do, so if you want to like lean into the arts, those are also not super easy to find. They don't put them on often in advance. No. What I went ahead and did is I like created a folder on Chrome and I have all these local high school theater drama departments. And I rove and check them like every other month. And once they post like, oh, this is going to be our winter show, it's going to be these dates, I put it on that Google Calendar. Mm-hmm. And some of them don't have pages. And so that's, again, where I use Facebook and I follow their Facebook page. And then I see, oh, gosh, this local high school is doing this performance. Because those performances are often super inexpensive. They're often not super long for, your littles who are willing to sit for however long.
It's also put on by kids.
It's put on by kids, which is always very accessible. Mm-hmm. And it's really low stakes, right? If you have to leave early, the tickets aren't that expensive. It's convenient. We love going to watch, middle school choir concerts or high school drama or whatever. So, and sometimes they also have other fun events going on at the schools. They're in your local area. So, keep tabs. What's your local elementary school doing? Are they having a STEM fair that the whole community is invited to? Not just the kids that go to that school. There's, oftentimes there'll also be like summer camp workshop opportunities and stuff at your local school. So, don't think like, oh, that's not the world that we're in. 'Cause sometimes there can be some really fun things.
Yeah. Another thing that I like, we're keying in on a lot of things here. If you have a local fairgrounds, which we have in our town, even if it's worth driving 2 hours or so to get to it, they a lot of times have a lot of fun events that are so unique. And a lot of times they're like, oh, we're selling RVs this week, or,
there's the home show.
There's the home show and all that stuff. But the funny thing is, those are really interesting. Like, you're not going there to buy something, but you can walk through and just take a look. Maybe your kids want to see what an RV looks like, and you could talk about the construction of it, or maybe there's a rock and gem sale, and stuff like that.
Right. We have like a Mexican family festival that happens at ours.
Yes.
We have several big cultural events that happen at ours, in addition to the fair, which the fair itself is incredibly educational.
Yeah, the fair's great.
I mean, yes, there's all the rides and there is the fried things that we all love. And that fresh lemonade.
But we do get to look at all the chickens and the rabbits and all the cows.
Yeah, and there's all the displays, right? Yeah. There's tons to talk about, and our kids are always come out like wanting to bake and wanting to make things, and they get really inspired. So there is a lot to learn. So yeah, if you have some sort of a local fairgrounds somewhere nearby, there's more than just the fair going on at that site.
One last thing that we want to point out, and these are something that a lot of areas you're starting to see more and more of them, is maker fairs and kind of maker workshops. And very often these are places where it's kind of a subscription-based option, but a lot of times they let you visit it and kind of like see what it looks like. These are spaces that people can basically cooperatively own or use. Kind of expensive, machinery, whether it's a laser cutting machine or like 3D printers and electronics and things of that nature. People can come and make things, whether it's electronic things or even crafting or welding or woodworking, and they get access to other individuals who are very experienced in those, topics and those and that equipment to help teach you and guide you on, making a project. So if you have kind of a maker kid who wants to be an engineer or likes to build things or maybe likes to craft or something like that, a lot of these maker workspaces and workshops they're kind of tucked away. You got to really go and find them and seek them out. And it's a subscription base. So you pay by the month, and then you can go there and use the facilities between X time and X time. Right. And a lot of times they're like a key entry, and then you can go in and then use the materials, and they kind of have somebody very often there to assist or guide people. They don't leave it empty to, whatever you want to use.
And they may have like tours or something when they're trying to, tell people about what it means to sign up and what you have access to. And you might be able to just get in on one of those free tours and find all about, all about, what they can do there and, kind of things that your kids might get into. So there could be some interesting opportunities.
So we went through a lot of ideas on finding local places to go. Now the next thing would be like kind of creative ideas on ways to find local field trips, and because we want to go places, we want to do things, we want to see stuff. The first thing we would kind of like think about is cultural festivals, and this is something that we've keyed in on a lot in these performances and these cultural festivals. Like we talked about going to the Highland Games. We just finished studying Mexico, and we went to the Dia de los Muertos celebration down in Redmond, and it was a really cool thing. Having these cultural events, and we're looking at some of the Diwali events and stuff like that here in the local area, trying to key in on those festivals to help guide us through our education so that we can experience all the things like sights, the music, the sounds, the smells, all the things that wrap together in culture that we can experience with those people and really feel like we're part of that culture.
And if you don't know where to go to find those events and you're like doing some searching, there is often a cultural center for a specific nationality in your area. So, we've got like a Japanese cultural center that has a Japanese garden that you can go and visit. There's a Mexican cultural center. There's all kinds of different. So you want to look and see like, where does that community go for resources? And they often have like the Mexican cultural center has all kinds of workshops and things. And like leading up to Dia de los Muertos, they had crafting workshops where the kids could come and make sugar skulls and just all the different things. And they have events going on throughout the year for that local community. And so it's great to be able to call up and say, hey, I'm not a member of this community, but my homeschool is going to be studying this. Is it okay if we attend? Is this something we can do? We found everyone was incredibly gracious when we attended the Dia de los Muertos festival. That went great. Everyone loved that our kids were there and that we told them that we're learning about it. So the other thing we do for field trips often is we'll go to a restaurant and we will tell them, hey, we're studying. We went to, when we were studying Colombia, we went to this food truck and we told the guy there, that we're studying Colombia, and we asked him what part of Colombia he's from and how long did he live there before he moved here, and what was his favorite part of living in Colombia, and just all these different pieces. He was so thrilled to talk to our kids all about this, and it was a great experience for him. It was a great experience for them. So, look for things in your local area if you're looking for cultural events that are from different nationalities, and you could find some really just interesting things we had no idea existed in this area until we really started looking.
Going beyond culture and going into nature, kind of that big thing that is always just sitting there beckoning us to come along. Thinking about the state parks, the local parks, the trails in your area. I know out west, I just did a trip with my dad across the country, and we went essentially the Lewis and Clark route. And we were stopping at various points at famous places, and it was just in the middle of like a state park. And like, this is Decision Point, where the Lewis and Clark had to make a decision on which lake, which river to go up to try to find the Columbia, right? As they're going across, we kind of followed the Missouri all the way around as we were going. There's so many like historical things that might be nestled within a state park or even a local park. And I believe this was a state park, but you may have a national park in your backyard that may have mining or timber history. I read this book called The Big Burn about a big fire out in Idaho back about 100 and something years ago. And we happened to drive right through Wallace, Idaho, where it was set. And it was really cool. And so I got out, took some pictures. I'm like, Dad, you don't realize this whole place was on fire 100 years ago. And you have so much history just kind of like just up the road, and try to find historical events, maybe old mines and things like that might be in, the state park or in those places. There's so much history just sitting right there that's just waiting for you to discover. And
if you have a historical society that's in your town or in your county, they're a great source of information for that. So we love to use the app All Trails. It works great because it's going to show you trails that are not only in national, state, and local parks, but we have a conservation area not far from us. It shows those trails as well. It's a great place to show all the trails together. If you have like a trail association, like we have Washington Trail Association, you might have something similar that you could also get access to. So oftentimes those trails, if there's old like lime kilns or whatever, or you might find on those trails it'll either say it there, or you can also go to your historical society. And oftentimes too, if you talk to your local library about books about the history of your area, we have we have a whole series. Like every town in our area has its own little book that they published about the history of that town.
Yeah, it's like a little history. I'll see if I'll put a couple in the show notes for you. You can kind of see what we're talking about.
Yeah, and so you could even use one of those and say, what's the history of our town or the town next to us? And as you read through it, where can we go around our own local town that, you may have driven by something 1,000 times and you don't realize that, oh, boy, it has this huge cultural significance to our town.
That's the old Davies Bridge,
Right, yeah. Well, that's how they, for us, it's a lot of logging and things like that.
For us, yeah.
And so, realizing like, oh, that line that's cut through the trees, that's because that's where they used to, blah, 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 blah. Right. So you can get all of that from a historical society. And believe me, the historical society is not busy. No. That is not a busy place, and they love to have
They're just waiting for you to come in.
Oh my gosh, they are. They're all like, usually senior volunteers.
Yeah.
They love to see kids. They would love for you to come in and say, we want to learn about the history of our area. Where are some hikes we could take, or where are some businesses that we could visit, some locations. They are so willing to help.
Yeah, right next door is the genealogical society.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's always one there. Next thing would be kind of like business tours. And I know that's something we don't really think about, but for us in our area, we have some really big businesses that are happy to take you on tours. I mean, obviously Amazon warehouses are all around us. Boeing has an enormous touring
the
facility.
Factory tour
The
there
factory
is so
tour
good.
for the assembly of the airplanes is just amazing to walk out on the floor and see all these giant planes in assembly. It's just crazy to watch.
If you're in Oregon, you can tour the Tillamook factory.
Exactly.
In Northern California, you can tour the Jelly Belly factory. There's some really, and the engineering that goes into those machines is just fascinating.
That's something that we've always enjoyed as a family, is watching the how it's made.
We love those.
Who was the guy? He was on the Nickelodeon. He was the Nickelodeon.
Oh, it was like Mark Summers.
Mark Summers, yeah.
Yeah.
And he had the show on Discovery. It was like how it's made.
He does the food one.
He does the food one.
He does how the food's made.
The food's made, yeah.
And the regular how it's made is on Discovery Channel. But you can also watch those, on YouTube. We love how it's made. But
there's always these type of factory
Yeah.
tours, and we enjoy watching the processes and how things are assembled and put together. If
you learn a lot.
If you live, especially if you have a specific industry that your area is famous for, like maybe, if you live in Detroit, you can go tour some of the car factories and the assemblies. If you're down south in the South, where a lot of cars are made now, you may be able to tour a plant that happens to be, an hour away. They'll give you a tour, especially with a lot of the modern plants. There are a lot of robotics. It's really cool to watch.
Yeah, there can be lots of businesses, that will allow tours. So there's, the easiest thing to do if you don't have a big group is to go for ones that just offer a standard tour to anybody, like the Tillamook factory, for example, in Oregon. It's a fantastic tour.
That's a great place to go.
We've been on it a couple times, and it ends with fresh ice cream. So, that's a bonus. So those are the easiest ones to do if you are just individuals. But if you have a group of a few different families together, or a small meetup or co-op or whatever, you can just contact businesses that don't normally have a tour and say, our kids are learning about this, can we come in and have a tour? So many places are really very happy to accommodate. Even we've got a local theater here, and we are happy to bring in groups of kids to do tours and show them how it works backstage and the facilities. And there's a lot of places that are very happy to help you. We don't think about them because we're like, they're a business and they're busy. But, it's funny, yesterday you brought the kids into the office because I've had such a long week with tech and I haven't been seeing them. And you said, well, I'll bring them lunch. You know how many people, we were having such a stressful day at the office, and then you brought in these two little girls. They sat at my desk and they waved to everybody as they walked by. Yeah. Everyone was all smiles. Everyone was so excited. For the rest of the day, people said how cute they were, and everybody just kind of like reset and lightened their load. So we think about not wanting to impose on businesses. And of course, we do have to make sure we're not unruly, certainly when we visit, and we're respectful. But I mean, they really do enjoy having kids visit.
Another thing that I think is kind of an unsung thing is sports facilities, especially maybe not the big time, like, the Seattle Seahawks or whatever, But a lot of times there's like minor league teams.
Oh, yeah.
And that you can really, they do a ton of outreach because they struggle to get butts in the seats and everything. And they're constantly begging for groups to come or give tours or have special meet and greets. You know, we have some minor league hockey teams here. We have minor league baseball. Those people are begging for small groups to come out.
Oh, sure. Your local ice rink, how they keep it, how they make the ice, how they keep it cold, how they care for it, that same thing with performance venues.
Yeah. Any type of performance thing.
There's all kinds of different ways to do it. Your local universities is also a great one. We have a university. So Western Washington is up in Bellingham, for example, and you can go on campus and you can tour around. In one of the campus buildings, there are dinosaur bones. Yeah. This is not a museum. I don't have to, museums is the obvious one, but you'd be amazed at what exists just on college campuses. Yeah.
If you have a college in your backyard, I think it's an underrated resource because, not just for the sports and, the symphony's playing or
many events.
Or this, musicians coming to give a concert or something like that. Or there's this lecture that's occurring or right. They have an exhibit on these bones for whatever. A lot of times that stuff is just like, it's underrepresented and you forget about it, or maybe you have to drive 40 minutes to go to that university. There's so many opportunities there just to walk across campus. A lot of times there's cultural events that might be going on. I think very underrated is finding that local university and really enjoying the experience of walking around. And I think also it's very aspirational. Because we want our kids to, go on and have good careers and stuff. And very often that track requires college, and so it's kind of cool to hey, this is maybe the next step, and
right, or show them a glimpse of a possible future for them. Maybe that college isn't for them, but if it is, what would that look like? And so demystifies it, and it can be really exciting. So local universities, and it's not just the events being put on by the students. It's also, like you say, they have a lot of guest performers, guest lecturers, and other events that happen because it's a large venue space that they maybe couldn't get that space somewhere else in town. So universities are great.
So moving on from, all these other outings, I think a lot of times the hard part is, okay, where do you find those? And you talked a little bit before about Facebook, and I think that's a great example. Another good example that of using technology of us getting on these camps, you have to just be on Instagram to follow this one team. When they announce their summer, event or the winter event that they're doing, that we can get notified by it.
Yeah. Right. Some of them are very wonky.
Sometimes you need to have the technology there to assist you because, whether you're using, Nextdoor or some type of local events or something through Facebook, there's so much technology that can help you find maybe what you're looking for, maybe what you don't even know is right there in front of you.
Eventbrite is great if the event is large enough and it's something that needs tickets. So Eventbrite is awesome for that. If it's something smaller that doesn't actually require tickets, it's really hard to find out about that. We were doing all kinds of searching for Dia de los Muertos events and Diwali events and just Googling, nothing. Facebook events, all kinds of stuff. There was, and it's great because it all knew where we were located. So we were able to say, just my local area. It came in with all kinds of stuff. And Facebook events is nice because you can also pinpoint the timing. I want events on this day, or, for example, we were thinking about, we wanted to attend a Diwali event, and we were only available a couple of specific days because I have this other show going on. And so we were able to look and go, there's actually no Diwali events. We're going to delay, and we'll study India a little later. But we were able to see exactly the days that we had in mind. So if your family is we every Friday, or Saturday as a family, we do some sort of a experience together or a field trip, you can just search on just that day and you're going to get all the events that some of them require tickets, but a lot of the ones that don't require tickets are going to be posted on Facebook events.
A lot of times those are, like what you said, there's cultural events, but don't sleep on the craft fairs. I know our group, my writers group, we go to different craft fairs and craft events and community events, and we try to sell books and whatnot, but we're also doing outreach to try to find people. And a lot of these events have other non-for-profits that are just trying to get in front of eyeballs to tell people, that they exist and that they do things. Don't sleep on those events as well, going to them and also seeing people doing crafting and learning about art and, metal work and woodworking and whatnot. You may not buy anything, but the kids will love to just like look and see and ask questions and things like that. So don't sleep on those if you're looking for events as well.
The other thing that I would mention too is, your local news sites might have events and things. And also if you have a family newsletter kind of thing, we have a couple of different local newsletters that we can just email subscribe to that'll send us all kinds of family events that are happening. Yep. You can get some really good nuggets in there. If you have what I would call, I used to refer to it as the moms, the thrifty moms. Yeah. We had a couple like Thrifty Northwest Mom. There was a few different blogs, and they would post all kinds of free or low cost events that were going on. And they know because they're like, oh, last year this event happened. So it's on their radar. Mm-hmm. I think that's the problem is if you're not in the know, you don't, how do you get in the know? This is my constant problem. And so I haven't found like one site to rule them all, but if you find a couple bloggers you like, get on a parents and family newsletter, have Facebook events, you can kind of crowdsource and, Meetup is also a great way to go if you're looking for local groups. Sometimes, you may not want to join a group permanently, but you might want to just come and have that experience. I was part of a women's choir, and if somebody had contacted us and said, can I just come and listen to rehearsal because I want to expose my kids to this, we would have been so excited about that. Like super duper excited. So you may not want to join that, but your child may have a budding interest in something. And that's a great way to, maybe your child wants to learn Japanese. Maybe your child is interested in line dancing. Maybe whatever it is, and you're like, I don't know, should I get a class on this? Should we embark on this whole new thing? Find a meetup, a local event. Go to it and see if that, if your child's like, oh yeah, this is totally what I want to do, or oh no, this is way more. This isn't what I had. Sometimes what like our daughter, our 9-year-old especially, what she envisions in her head something is not at all. Like she's helping backstage at the theater, and she's pulling the curtain.
Yeah. She's doing a great job.
Doing a great job. She's on the curtain and she resets some chairs sometime. In her mind, before she started this, she was going to be in charge of all the props. She was going to set them all exactly in the places they go, and she was going to organize them. I'll be my little organizer. She was going to organize all the props. Of course, backstage is chaos, and I can't put a 9-year-old in charge of the props. It's just...
You could.
I could, but I don't recommend it. She's not in charge of the props, but so even last night she was like, Mommy, can we just, I need to make a list. I need a list of every prop and exactly where it goes, and I'm going to organize it. And I'm like, okay, sweetie, I need you to stand on the curtain because you're my curtain girl, so like what they have in their mind isn't maybe exactly what it's going to be for them. And so giving them someday I told her, you're going to grow into the props person, but you gotta work your way up, babe.
It's kind of like how they think work is now.
Right.
Work is eating with mommy, going on tours, playing foosball, and playing video games.
Yes, our like lounge cafe thing has like a TV, and there's like Sonic was playing on it. And
they love work.
We had foosball, and there was Pac-Man and stuff in there, and they played it all. And they're like, mommy's, and there's bowls of, because it's just after Halloween, there's bowls of Halloween candy all over the place, and so. Our youngest is like, Mommy's office has TV, video games, foosball, and candy.
It's just fun with a little bit of spreadsheets and PowerPoint.
So they have this totally incorrect vision. So anyway, if your child has an interest in something, find an event to go to see if it, they have a correct understanding of that, or if that's really something they want to pursue.
I'm a big fan, and I want to second the meetup. If you have a budding interest or budding hobby, crafting. What was that event? You guys went and did like a crafts event that happened like every Friday night.
Oh, it was super cool. It was actually once a month, all these people got together and you just brought your own craft.
And you just crafted all together.
Right. So some people were doing diamond painting. Some people were doing knitting. Some were crocheting. Some were doing needlepoint and cross stitch. And there was just a whole bunch of different stuff going on. And I actually went with like, I don't even remember what I brought with me, like a paint by number. I don't even remember. I did something like really, because I just wanted to see all the different crafts. Yeah, right. And then people were there and were happy to help you and teach you.
Don't sleep on the meetups. There's so many groups. Like my writers group, we post on the meetup, and we're constantly getting new people in. that are interested in, maybe starting to write and be what, a writer or an author. It's really, really fun. And I think Meetup is that great opportunity. I mean, I know there's Facebook groups and stuff and Facebook events and whatnot, but Meetup is really like kind of that hobby central. There's other things it does and everything, but if you're looking for a certain type of hobby and you want to and a bunch of hobbyists are coming together, hey, I want to sing, I want to play music, I want to be in a choir, man, a lot of those people post on Meetup, and it's great place for you to find a free, community-driven, hobby-centered opportunity to, get a hobby that you might be interested in.
Right.
You can go with your learner and sit and craft or whatever it might
something
be.
that could become a career.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking about careers too, if you have a child who thinks, my daughter is very interested in marketing. She thinks marketing is really cool, and I agree. I think marketing is really cool too. Cool. And so she's really into it. And I've been talking with the marketing ladies at work, and they were like, "Just let us know." When she's ready to come in, we'd love to have her like shadow us for a day. Right now, she's too young. She probably will think all work is boring. So she got to get a little bit older.
Before you crush those dreams.
Before you're like, it's a lot of computer work. But if your child has a specific interest in a profession, don't hesitate, even if they're 10 or something. They don't have to be a teenager necessarily, to see if they can't talk with someone who does that job, visit their place of employment, maybe job shadow them. If you want to start kind of really easy with that, you could reach out to your homeschool Facebook group and say, are there any parents on here, or spouses or whatever, that are in veterinary science, for example. I have a child who's really interested in being a vet. Could they come and visit, or could they job shadow? That would be a great place to start, I think, because those are people that all speak our homeschool language and will know exactly what you're trying to do. Less so you could just, make some phone calls around the area and say, hey, local vet, can my kid come in? It would be way easier if you network through the homeschooling group, probably, your local Facebook group. But yeah, don't hesitate. The sooner that we can get our kids exposed to a career that they think they might be interested in, the sooner we can help to fuel that passion, or help them move on to a new passion if they're like, "Ooh, that was not what I thought it was going to be."
When you had a friend that was thinking about going, or somebody that you knew that was thinking about, it was a vet, and she did an internship during her high school years or something like that.
No, she was only in middle school.
And then she realized, I do not want to do this.
Yeah, so she said it was a homeschooler. She was interested in it, and they had her come in like a few afternoons, and I think she was just doing some like cleanup for them, right? But she was in the office and being exposed to what that was like, and she realized that just wasn't the right thing for her. That wasn't going to be something that she was going to enjoy as a career.
It was the smell.
Who knows?
Let's all have that smell.
That cleaner smell. Yeah. But don't hesitate just because your kid is 12 or 13 or something, to see if you can get them that opportunity.
Well, I think this is perfect to kind of dovetail into our last topic, which is taking your experiences and tying them to a subject. You were talking a little bit about tying them to a career, but a lot of times that career is, subject based, right? Sure. First thing would be like kind of science and that for me would be thinking like the zoo, thinking about any type of science center that might be in your area, getting subscriptions like a year pass to the zoo. A lot of times the zoo may have other events that are going on.
Yeah, there always are.
If you have a kid who's really into biology or animals, that is such a great thing, because there are special events going on where they may have unique access because you're a season pass ticket holder, and you can go and sit and watch one of the people work and handle the animals or care for the animals. Yeah. There's a lot of opportunities.
Your local aquarium, you also might have some sort of a sanctuary. So that could be a marine sanctuary or other animal sanctuary.
Animal rescues. Yeah.
Right, yeah, where they're doing rehabilitation. Lots of science centers. That's a good one. Your local planetarium. We have a University of Washington has a planetarium that you can go and visit that. So there's, of course, lots of the things that come in the museum science center sphere are really easy to tie in.
kind of the history and culture. There's so many historical centers. For us, we have a lot of tribal centers.
Tons of great
we talked a lot about the cultural centers that are in certain areas. So definitely take advantage of that might be in that area.
Right. There might be a historical reenactment in your area, depending on what
Civil
it is.
War reenactment, Revolutionary War reenactment, especially on the East Coast. Those are really cool to go and see.
Yeah, there could be lots of those things. That's really easy to tie. Another one is, you're trying to tie in like math and economics. We have a kids' day at our farmers market, and our daughter actually worked that one year and saved up money for summer camp.
What an amazing opportunity.
She was like making change. She was learning about selling. That's why she was interested in the marketing thing.
She couldn't stop talking about it for months before and after. Yeah.
And this year, the kids' farmers market was like 3 times the size that it was last year. And it wasn't just kids baking things. We had one little girl who was, who painted picture frames. And so she sold picture frames for you to put just like a photograph, like 4x6 in. We had other kids who were making jewelry and all kinds of stuff. So so many great things to learn, through experiences like that. You also can get that, of course, through your business tours. You're going to study economics and things, and you've got an older learner who's maybe middle school. Boy, a business tour is just the perfect way to put that together.
And the final one would be kind of that arts and physical education. Obviously, you talked a little bit about the arts galleries. We talked a lot about the theater and performances. That's a great opportunity if you have like a budding thespian that wants to like be in the arts. Maybe they don't want to be on the stage. Ariel, how often do you need tech crew?
Oh, all the time.
All the time. So if you want to just be part of the show.
You want to run a spotlight, come talk to me.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
We have
they're desperate for helpers.
Yeah, we always need helpers. The other thing is there's lots of, not just art galleries, which of course are open all the time and you can go and see, but there are lots of like, there's workshops at art galleries that happen, or there's I'm struggling with the word. It's not like a festival, but it's like a group of galleries will all get together and have some sort of event where you go from like gallery to gallery to gallery. And there's lots of opportunities to meet with local artists and things. And there's some, arts centers that open up and they have classes and things, and they'll have special events there beyond just classes that you can go and you can learn about all different types of art. You can submit art for the fair, which is really great. And then you can see your kids' art with all the rest of the yard. And I mean, so there's a lot of great stuff to be done. And of course, physical education, we talked about sports teams and all the things you can go to. Minor league sports teams. Wow. Tickets are super inexpensive.
And they're fun. It is
very fun.
Very fun.
Very fun.
Don't also forget, if you have a little bit of an older learner, maybe middle school or even just young high school, a lot of times the Boys and Girls Clubs or the YMCAs in your local areas love to use high schoolers and middle schoolers as referees.
Oh yeah, and they get paid.
And they get paid for it, and it's a great experience to be kind of, okay, I'm calling the game. I mean, I did some refereeing in college at Florida State, and the intramurals. So I was a referee for like the basketball leagues, and that was a paid job. That was a paid gig.
Yeah.
Because intramurals at Florida State were enormous. And like whether it was like ice hockey, we won intramural state championship. Florida State championship.
It wasn't ice hockey.
It was not. It was floor hockey.
I was going to say it was not ice and floor.
Yeah, smoked salmon representing. And then there was just like there's a ton of opportunities. So if you're looking, if you're have somebody who may be interested in kinesiology or biology or sports science or sports medicine, that is a great opportunity for them to like be a part of the sports experience. Not just like, obviously, we like our kids to play sports and stuff, but that's an opportunity to be kind of on the other side of the sports and kind of, governing it with like, being part of like an organization that is planning and coordinating enormous, events. Like every Saturday, they're coordinating dozens and dozens and dozens of games, and you're a piece of that. And you learn a lot about like, wow, this is a complex experience to manage an entire, Saturday of sports for basketball or for volleyball or whatever it is.
And if you have a student who's really interested in a particular sport, like let's say that soccer is that are super into that, you can always talk with lots of the local clubs and things and find out about what it's like to run tournaments and what, are special considerations that they make. And there's a lot of people that have a lot of passions in your local community. I think that's if we want to sum this up in one word, there's one sentence. There's lots of people in your local area that are passionate about something that can be highly educational for your kids. So definitely get out there, look in different areas. If you have other places, other sources of information that we haven't talked about that is great, please post it on the Facebook group and help us to learn about other ways to find cool field trip opportunities and learning experiences for our kids. Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time,
Happy homeschooling!